This week's word of the master is, who do men say that I am? Who do men say that I am? We're going to look at Matthew 16, 13 through 20, Mark 8, 27 through 30, and Luke 9, 18 through 21. I think we can probably look at Matthew. I think we get the most information here from Matthew. So we'll probably read that, and we can refer to the others as need be. So let's go over to Matthew 16, and read verses 13 through 20.
Now when Yeshua had come into the parts of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his taught ones, saying, who do men say the Son of Adam is? And they said, say to Yohanan the Immerser, and others Eliyahu, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. He said to them, and you, who do you say I am? And Shimon Kepha answered, said, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living Elohim. And Yeshua answering said to him, blessed are you, Shimon Bar Yonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in the heavens. And I also say to you that you are Kepha. And on this rock I shall build my assembly, and the gates of Sheol shall not overcome it. And I shall give you the keys of the reign of the heavens, and whatever you bind up on earth shall be having been bound in the heavens, and whether you loosen it on earth shall be having been loosened in the heavens. Then he warned his taught ones that they should say to no one that he is Yeshua the Messiah.
Okay, very good. So when we look at Mark's version and we look at Luke's version, they're basically identical except for the fact that when it talks about who men say that he is, it don't mention Jeremiah. Luke and Mark both say John the Immerser. They both say Elijah. And they both mention that he is generally a prophet. Matthew is the one who says Jeremiah, which we'll talk about. But let's go back to Matthew and look at some of these things here. It's interesting when we look at Matthew's version. He says this differently here. I guess we have to look at these just so we can see the differences. Just briefly, let's go down to Mark 8 and 27. Just read 8 and 27 of Mark.
Mark 8:27. And Yeshua and his taught ones went out to the villages of the Caesarea Philippi, and the way he asked his taught ones, saying to them, who do men say I am?
Okay, here it just says, who do men say that I am? And also in Luke, he only says, who do the crowds say that I am? Only in Matthew, let's go back to Matthew, does he say, who do men say that the Son of Man is? So he's referring to himself as the Son of Man. So he's calling himself something here, and then he's saying, who do men say that I am? But then he adds a answer to, they could have just been like, no, they say that. What you said, they say that you're the Son of Man. Like he adds a thing, title per se, to who men could possibly say that he is. But he refers to his own self, Yeshua does, as the Son of Man. And so what is it that Yeshua is saying here when he refers to his own self as the Son of Man? What's he bringing out when he refers to his own self, as the scripture says, the son of Adam, the Son of Man? Let's look over at Isaiah. What's Isaiah 51 and 12 say?
Then they understood that he did not say to beware of the leaven of bread, but of the teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Oh, I'm sorry. It didn't change. I clicked it. I'm still in Matthew here. I'm like, wait a minute. They don't talk about Sadducees in Isaiah. Hold on. Okay. I did click it. Was it 16? No.
51 and 12.
51. No, that's not true. My bad. You got no spare. It says, I am he who comforts you. Who are you that you should be afraid of man that dies, and the Son of Man who is made like grass?
Okay, so here, when the Son of Man is referenced, it deals with what you might think the Son of Man kind of signifies. Is a man.
Human being.
Right? It signifies humanity. This title, the Son of Man. Psalm 144 and 3. What's that say? Psalms 144 and 3.
It says, Yahweh, what is man that you should know him? Son of man that you should think of him?
Okay, so when Yeshua is referring to himself as the Son of Man, he seems to be accentuating his own humanity. But I'm not sure if he's looking for, in his questioning of the disciples, if he's looking for that same aspect from them necessarily. Because when we look and see what Peter actually says, his answer, he congratulates him basically. He basically said, correct. That's the right answer, basically. Don't tell anyone. But it's interesting when we look kind of at the messianic prophecies. It's interesting that the messianic figure that we see in the scriptures, he has this aspect of being at the very least connected to the Most High, if not being actually the Most High himself. But there's also the connection to humanity. Here, let's look at Daniel 7. Daniel chapter 7, 13 and 14. Because this title, this Son of Man title, there's messianic significance to the title, but there's still an emphasis on the humanity in the with this person. So let's look at Daniel 7, 13 and 14.
I was looking in the night visions and saw one like the son of Enosh coming with the clouds of the heavens. And he came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And to him was given rulership and preciousness and a reign to all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His rule is an everlasting rule, which shall not pass away. His reign, that which is not to be destroyed.
Okay, very good. So this is interesting because it says in Daniel 7 and 13, this person that came with the clouds of heaven was one that was like unto a son of man. He was like a human. He was like unto man. That word there, like, in the Hebrew is literally like, or as, or according to, or in the similitude of, in the likeness of. And so this messianic figure is connected to this title of Son of Man. But the Son of Man in and of itself, as this title, there's a connection to the idea of humanity. And so when we think about this idea of Son of Man, the connotation that it has with it is, in fact, there's a connection to humanity. But it just so happens that the messianic figure is not. So what I'm saying is that the Son of Man don't necessarily signify Messiah necessarily, even though the Messiah is sometimes referred to as the Son of Man. But the main significance that is bringing forth is this connection, this quality of humanness with it. Let's look really fast at John 3 and 13. John 3, verse 13.
says, and no one has gone up into the heaven except he who came down from the heaven, the son of Adam.
Okay, that's interesting. Because we're talking about, again, this idea of the Son of Man, where the thing that it wants to accentuate is the humanity. But John said, no one went up into heaven except for the one that came down from heaven, the Son of Man. I mean, to me, it's just, this is all very interesting. Because, again, we have this title. It don't mean, it's not necessarily, the Messiah, the Son of Man is not emphasizing the idea of Messiah. It just so happens that the one who's prophesied as Messiah is called the Son of Man, accentuating humanity. But John is talking about Yeshua, referring to him as the Son of Man right after he just said that he came down from heaven.
And it's like, he didn't go up to heaven and come down from heaven. He came down to go up.
Which one do you do first?
No one's going up except the person that came down.
But he's the Son of Man, though.
I'm gonna say, where did Enoch go? Or Elijah go?
He was down.
I don't know where they went. They went away. They was and then they wasn't. And so Yeshua, he's asking this question, right? He's asking this question, and he wants to know, what are these legends that people are speaking of as it relates to me? What is these people talking about whenever they refer to me? Who do they say that I am? So if we look at verse 14, he gives them the basic list. There's people out here acting like, because at this point John the Immerser is dead. There is an overlap because John, of course, he immersed Yeshua. But shortly after the overlap is when he gets taken away. So it's almost as if John gets taken away, and then Yeshua kind of fills the gap. And so there could be some who don't realize that there was an overlap, and they only seen John go away and Yeshua come on the scene, and they look at him and say, oh, this is the reincarnation of John the Baptist. So that was one of the things. That was one of the things that people said. And then others say Elijah. Which is something that was referred to in relation to John the Baptist. But then this, interestingly enough, when we look at Matthew, when Matthew adds this other prophet, Jeremiah. What's Jeremiah got to do with anything? Luke don't say nothing about Jeremiah. Luke or Mark don't mention him. They just say, or some other prophet. But it's interesting when we look at some of the ancient commentators. They talk about the fact that Jeremiah is omitted by Mark and Luke, the reason why he is mentioned is not because of what is said of him in Jeremiah 1 and 5. Look at Jeremiah 1 and 5.
Yeah, I was going to say, what does that say?
He's not omitted because of that reason. We got to go to the reason. That's over here.
Jeremiah 1:5.
It says, before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. And before you came out of the womb, I did set you apart. I appointed you a prophet to nations.
Okay, very good. So when we think about Jeremiah and him being chosen, he is a special individual, and just because of the Most High has an idea for him prior to his coming, it's not the same as when we think about Messiah, who there was things that he was predestined to do ahead of time. Jeremiah has a specific, in time, a specific duty. But when we think about, looking at this, what these commentators had to say, because the Jews thought that he was the prophet, Jeremiah was the prophet spoken of in Deuteronomy 18, where it talks about the one who's like unto Moses. And so the ancient commentators, which Matthew would have been privy to, seeing that he was the one who was what?
He was a tax collector, right?
Matthew was a tax collector, right? But he grew up in the ways, right? And so he knows about the traditions. So things that are connected to traditions, we typically find in Matthew's book. And so the ancient commentators connect Jeremiah to Moses. They make a comparison between Jeremiah and Moses. We think about Jeremiah, who was a leader of the people, where he was the leader of a people who didn't want to follow, kind of like Moses. He played an intercessory role for the people, kind of like Moses. And so there's these various, Moses, it could be said, prophesied to the people for 40 years. That's how long Jeremiah prophesied to the people. And so there's connections that are made between Jeremiah and Moses, which is why Matthew here brings them up specifically. And so when we think about this messianic figure, who these people are having these connections and pointing them back to Messiah, whether it be Elijah or Moses or Jeremiah, who is like unto Moses, this prophet, that, like what it talks about in Deuteronomy chapter 18, the prophet that's like unto Moses, this one that's coming after, is, yes, he's a prophet, but he's higher really than all of the other prophets. Whatever he says, you're supposed to do. And if you don't do whatever it is that he say, then you're supposed to die. And so Yeshua's asking the disciples, who do men say that he is? And they're saying all these things that point towards the Messiah, but not necessarily being the actual one. He refers to his own self as the Son of Man, which again we said accentuates this idea of humanity. And then we look at what Peter actually says in verse 16. Read Matthew, back to Matthew 16. Read verse 16 again, where what Peter actually has to say whenever Yeshua asks him, "Who do you say that I am?" I know what all the people have to say about who they think that I am, but Peter is asked by Yeshua, "Who do you think that I am?" And then he says what?
It says, Shimon Kepha answering said, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living Elohim."
Okay, so Peter says, "You're Messiah and the Son of Elohim." And so it's interesting that people, they bring up when they talk about even the idea of a Messiah. People bring up the fact that Israel as a people over the course of time, they've had many messiahs throughout history. There's been many messianic figures that existed. But it's interesting when we think about the prophesied Messiah, that the one who Yeshua exemplifies, that there's two things that are connected to only him, that all these other people don't fit into the qualifications. And when Peter says, "You are the Messiah, you are the anointed one, the Son of the living Elohim," it speaks of his divine nature. And so Yeshua says that there's no way, nothing within your flesh or your blood, nothing that's connected to your humanness revealed this thing to you. This came to you by way of the Spirit. And so it's interesting when we look at what people say about these next verses, because this verse 18, is why they talk about the fact of Peter being the first pope. The first pope. Peter was the first pope because of this verse right here, verse 18. You read from verse 18.
Yep. And I also say that you are Kepha, and on this rock I shall build my assembly, and the gates of Sheol shall not overcome it.
So the church is going to be built on Peter. Because he's the rock. And the church is going to be built on him.
That's Saint Peter. You gotta say it right. You dealing with
Yes.
Saint
But I don't think that's what's going on here. I think what's going on here is the fact that Peter receives a revelation from on high as to who Yeshua is. Revelation and confession. He received the knowledge of who Yeshua is, and he confessed that knowledge from his mouth. And so when we think about what is being said over here, when it says on this rock, it's not dealing with Peter, but what he actually did, which was receive this revelation and then walk in that revelation that he received.
Yes.
Him being able to have this particular understanding as to who Yeshua was is what Messiah is going to build his assembly on. And those who have received that revelation, the gates of Sheol are not going to be able to be overcome. They're not going to be able to overcome those ones that have been received that revelation. Once you've come to the knowledge that's been given by the Most High, just like Peter did, there's not going to be anything that's going to be able to turn you around from the thing that the Most High has done in you. And when that happens in people, the gates of hell, the grave, are not going to be able to overcome it.
Which makes it spiritual.
It's absolutely spiritual.
Because they took it, made it literal, and manifesting it and putting up statues of the saints and, you know, almost worshiping the saints because of these verses.
Yeah. But it's not necessarily about the individual, but what he did. Right? And then 19, I think, is another thing that I think is also misunderstood. But read verse 19 there.
And I shall give you the keys of the reign of the heavens, and whatever you bind on earth shall be having been bound in the heavens, and whatever you loosen on earth shall be having been loosed in the heavens.
Okay, very good. So people also take these verses here to mean or be connected to like ecclesiastical authority and power in terms of, you know, the church making various rulings, and those rulings or judgments being solidified. But the type of binding and loosening that Yeshua, I think, is talking about has already been talked about by Yeshua. And these things are spiritual. And as a matter of fact, 19 goes along with 18, what happened inside of Peter. But when Yeshua comes on the scene and he quotes Isaiah 61:1, when he talks about the spirit of the master, Yahweh is upon me, because Yahweh has appointed me to bring the good news to the meek, and has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted and proclaim release to the captives and the opening of the prison to those who are bound. The first thing Yeshua talks about is binding and loosening.
So verse is that?
Isaiah 61:1. The first thing Yeshua talks about when he comes on the scene is binding and loosening. He's binding up the brokenhearted, and he's releasing those that are captive. And so when people, when they receive the revelation of who Yeshua is, and when they become spiritually awoken, they become loosened from the things that bind them: sin, carnality, the flesh. And through the power of Yeshua HaMashiach, when we by faith accept the thing that he did for us, there are things that are loosened, that have been loosened on our behalf in the heavens. And because those things have happened in the heavens, those things are true in the earth. And so when we think about what it was that Peter is saying over here, the thing that he is saying, the thing that he's doing in terms of expressing the revelation that he received from on high and confessing that revelation to Messiah, is the way that the kingdom is perpetuated from here forward. So later on, Yeshua is going to talk about the fact that he's the door. And over here, Yeshua is talking about Peter having the keys. But the keys that he got ain't locking people out of the door. The key that he has is pointing people towards the door and helping them to understand how they're supposed to get in the door. So you actually gain the keys to the door. Each and every one of you gain a key to the door. And then you're able to share those keys with other people so that they can have a key to the door and they can go to the door and the door can be unlocked for them and they can go through it. But the key really is nothing but the knowledge of who Yeshua is. Which, unless the Most High shows that to you in your heart, you never see. So it's necessary for you to get the same thing that Peter had, which was the revelation. Which was that interaction between the Most High and you and your spirit to let you know who Yeshua is. And so this revelation that Peter has, that Yeshua is like, don't talk to nobody about this. Of course it don't mean forever. Right? Of course it don't mean forever, but just right now, just keep this on the low. You right. This is, everything you saying is correct. Keep that to yourself for right now. And let's just let the rest of this whole thing play out. Then we're going to see what's what. But it's interesting when we look at these verses over here, when we think about Yeshua, the Son of Man, the Son of Elohim, who he is, his divine nature. When we think about what it talks about in Isaiah chapter 9, Isaiah chapter 9, I guess we'll kind of close out when looking at this over here. Isaiah chapter 9, 6 through 7, it kind of gives us the same kind of idea when we're thinking about Yeshua, the Son of Man. Who's the man? There's humanity involved in the Messiah.
I mean, he says here, in the other, I don't know if that was Mark or Luke, but he says the Son of Man and the Son of Adam within the same, he says Son of Man, and then Peter says Son of Elohim.
Yeah.
So Son of Man and Son of Elohim
Is the total manifestation of who the ultimate Messiah is. He gave him a hint by calling himself I, the Son of Man. Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? Peter said the son of Elohim, the son of the living Elohim. And so in Isaiah, you have this same mixture. You have this same mixture of man and Elohim. Read Isaiah 9:6-7.
For a child is born unto us, a son is given unto us, and the rule is on his shoulder, and his name is called Wonder, Counselor, Strong El, Father of Continuity, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his rule and peace there is no end upon the throne of David and over his reign, to establish it and sustain it with right ruling and with righteousness from now on, even forever. The order of Yahweh of hosts does this.
Okay, very good. So the zeal of Yahweh is the motivating factor of this. The ardor of Yahweh of hosts is who does this. He's the initiator of it. But if we go back, right, a child is born to us, a son is given. His name is Wonder, Counselor, Strong El, Father of continuity, Eternal Father. So he's son and he's father. And he's a strong El. And he's a prince also. So he's the son. He's called Father. And he's called Elohim. You have and he sits on a throne, the throne of David, but he rules forever. And so you continually have this idea of eternity and humanity, but both in the true messianic figure that is coming, has come to redeem, eternally redeem the people.
But to me, it's like he had to be born, so I said he's born.
What?
He's born, but he's more than just a regular child that comes out.
Yeah. Yeah, he's born. He's a son, but then he's a father.
He's a father.
And then he's Elohim.
Strong.
But then he's a prince also. But then he's the king, because he sits on the throne. But the throne and his kingdom don't stop. It's forever. And all this is at the zeal, as a result of the zeal of the Father. He's the one that does it. And so it's interesting when we look at Yeshua, where he's having this private moment with his disciples, and he asks this question to see. It's kind of interesting because we look at what we saw in the Torah portion, where the Most High sends the people out to see kind of where their heart is, and he finds out. We look at Yeshua, where he asks his disciples, he wants to know kind of where their hearts is in comparison to what the mainstream thought of who Yeshua is. They've had all of these kind of things. They just got finished. It's interesting, the correlation between when you look at Yeshua and his disciples, where Yeshua's doing all these things, he's doing all these miracles. The people that are right there with him, his disciples, where he just got finished kind of fussing at them because they saw all the things that he did, and yet and still they weren't able to have the amount of faith that was expected of them at that time after all the things that they've seen. But then we look back at Israel, where the same thing kind of happens, where the Most High has done all that he did, and the people looked at what he did and still was able, unfortunately, to make wrong decisions in spite of all the things that they saw the Most High do. And so here in Matthew, when Yeshua speaks with his disciple Peter, who's basically, he's the next in line. Peter, he's the guy when Yeshua go away. But he says what he says to Peter, and Peter really he passes the test. There's much promise here in Peter because he says all of the things that he's supposed to say. He understands who the Master Yeshua is. And so, it's necessary for each and every one of us, if we want to be able to stand on this rock that is spoken of, not Peter himself, but the idea of understanding who Messiah is, receiving that revelation from on high, and manifesting that revelation, that thing that has happened on the inside of us, allowing for that to come out from us, and us to actually be able to stand on it firmly. The fact that Yeshua is our salvation, and he is the only way to life. And with that knowledge, with that understanding, with that realization, we're able to not only be loosened, but we're able to participate in the loosening of those that are bound by sharing that revelation that we receive to others. All right. So, does anybody have any last questions or comments? Yes.
I was just thinking that with everything,
Wait, it's on change your mic.
is he, yeah, I was just thinking with everything that Peter saw, that you would think that he would have been able to say who Yeshua was without it having been a revelation.
Say that again.
That I would have thought that Peter would have been able to say who Yeshua was without it having to be a revelation.
Oh, you saying because of what he saw?
Yeah.
Yeah, but other people the same thing though, and they didn't believe. Right?
They thought it was someone who was basically resurrected from the dead. But not.
At the end of the day, it always takes the power of the Most High to get you to that place, because you have Joshua, Caleb, you have the other 10 spies. They all saw the same thing. But the scriptures said that Caleb had another spirit in him. Yeah. I'm just saying that the difference maker is the Spirit of the Most High. And so yes, Peter saw everything that the non-believers saw, but because of that spirit, because of the revelation that came from on high, that's the difference maker.
I mean, I just think about the children of Israel in the wilderness. They should have had a natural understanding that everything was going to be okay. But for some reason, only 2 out of everybody that came out of Egypt even made it in the land, not even Moses. So, I'm just saying,
Unless you come by the power of the Most High, you ain't coming. No amount of mental fortitude gets you there.
or even experience.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, we know someone who was cured of colon cancer, and he said he don't believe in miracles. So pancreatic cancer, I think of that. Pancreatic, one of the worst cancers there are, he got cured miraculously, and then you talk to him and say you don't believe in miracles. No, he believes in the best.
I believe in miracles.
I believe in miracles if that happened. I believe in his miracle.
I always ask the question whether or not, people are just target.
Or what?
Target. Because,
They are.
you see,
It's true.
you see things happen to people, and then you do the same thing they do. Like, it's like people are just lined up to walk right off the cliff.
Yeah.
You see the person in front of them walk off and then they walk right
And they
by.
walk off. It's non-stop.
Yeah.
It hasn't stopped.
Yeah. And so, the end of the day, the only answer is that we need the power of the Most High to work on our hearts in order to be able to change us. You seeing something isn't enough. You seeing a miracle isn't enough. You seeing a man walk on water isn't enough. You seeing the sea being split in two isn't enough. You seeing 5 loaves and 2 fishes turning into enough food for 5,000 isn't enough.
But then the next time they ask, we ain't got enough food.
It takes the Spirit of the Most High to change someone's cold, dead, wicked heart. All right.
That's going into predestination.
Predestination, I believe. All right. So, does anybody have any last questions or comments? You what? All right, that's what I thought. Okay, so that being said, we will be done for now. Y'all willing? Be back on next Shabbat. Look, the power went out, but the power can't kill us.
We don't, because we have our
Power don't
Wi-Fi.
kill us. Yeah,
Our Wi-Fi is next to the electricity.
we won't need that. You know what I'm saying?
Or at least around.
All right, so y'all willing? We'll be back on next Shabbat. And just say for now, Shabbat Shalom.
Bye.